putting out our Christmas decorations today for the first time for the season. So my son, 7 years old, was pretty excited, and he's putting out all the decorations and such. And there's one toy, the Elf on the Shelf. Many people are probably familiar with it, which is the story behind it is supposed to be that the elf sits on the shelf and kind of keeps eyes for Santa to make sure that the kids are behaving, and that if they're on the nice list or the naughty list, then they should get gifts or whatever it might be, right? And people have taken it all different directions. You know, he's supposed to hide it every night, and the kid's supposed to find it, but the kid can't touch it. If the kid touches the elf, that's a big problem. I forget if it destroys his magic or what it is, but it ultimately results in Santa not being happy and the kid not getting as many gifts. What was interesting is my son, again, 7 years old, he's in second grade. I try and teach him to think much like the way I think, which is to question, to not be certain on things that you can't really prove, to really try and understand why and think deeper about things, right? No, he's 7, so you take that as far as it goes, but it's what I try and push him towards. And I've wondered about that, how that's going to play out with the whole Santa Christmas situation of when he might realize. So as we were taking up the decorations this year, I thought it'd be interesting to see how this plays out. If there's any, his brain starts to click at all. Because on other topics, he has this ability to think deeper about it. If we're watching a TV show and there's a bad guy in the show, right, he might have the ability to think a step deeper and say, well, that guy's being bad, but it's because this person treated him in such and such way, or maybe it wasn't his fault, right? So there's that second, third level thinking. So again, curious to see if that was going to kick in when it came to Christmas and Santa. And what I noticed was that it didn't. It did not, right? There's been no talk or anything, any realization, any thought, any questioning, any trying to figure out how might this work. All that totally blindly good with and follows. But I've noticed that he's dedicated some mental resources and effort to making sure he's gamifying or gaming correctly the whole be good in front of Santa thing, right? Whether it be that, like, he'll ask a lot of questions. You know, can Santa see me right now? And does Santa know if I'm being bad? Or who exactly? How does Santa know exactly? Does the elf tell him? Do you guys tell him? Does he just see? Like, what's the story here? He's trying to figure it out. Same thing with the elf, right? There were certain rules of, like, can I touch it with a paper towel? If I pick it up with a paper towel, can I put it where it's supposed to go, or can I just not touch it at all? And you could see, like, he was optimizing for that part of the game. He understands there's certain rules and certain things that get him more gifts or less gifts from Santa. And his mind went right to dedicating its resources towards optimizing for that, because there's a fear there, right? There's a fear of, if he messes up and Christmas gets ruined and he doesn't get any gifts, that's worst case scenario. So it's interesting that the mind, even at an early age, it seems to be so compelled to address fear, right? To address things that might not necessarily even be logical, but they're deeply ingrained in us because there's some deep kind of base level reward that's at play, something that we want so badly that feels so good, that our mind will just accept many things, right? And in this case, it won't even entertain the idea of questioning, how does all this work? How's he getting around the globe, right? All the obvious questions. Is this really real? What I don't see magic anywhere else, etc. That's totally fine. Doesn't even consider it. But just jumps towards saying, how do I make sure I don't mess this up? And that's where the effort goes. And it feels like it might be representative. It feels like it might be an instance that indicates what goes wrong later in life, or at least, you know, maybe it's hardwired into us, maybe it's not, but this trait, this way of thinking that leads us so far astray, that we, you know, it's almost as if we all have the ability to think really well. There's just a finite amount of resources that we can dedicate to it. And it's a question of how efficiently you're going to allocate those resources. How are you going to use them? Where are you going to put them towards? And for so many of us, we dedicate our resources, much like my son, in the total wrong direction, the total illogical direction. We dedicate our resources towards something like protecting a belief that we already have, for protecting ourselves from any pain or discomfort potentially, from protecting ourselves from losing out on this base level pleasure or something that seems good. And it ends up being very short-sighted. Now, in the case of my son, it's, you know, it's all in good fun, and it actually works out. It's better that he doesn't realize yet, I think. Will yet to be seen, but it seems to work out in the favor. But that way of thinking, when you carry it on to later in life, is where the problem lies. It's what allows us to watch certain events unfold in the political or social forum and have this kind of emotional reaction that seems so logical to us. It seems like we're optimizing for the right thing. Our mind is just, it's in such a groove, and it's so natural for it to jump in that direction and say, there's something I'm afraid of, there's some identity issue, something I don't understand, something I don't even want to get into. So let me just optimize for the story that my brain's told me. Let me not question any logic. Let me not think about it from different angles. Let me not even entertain the idea of turning on that objective, better thinking, logical, rational brain. Let me just dedicate all my resources towards protecting the belief I have, making sure I'm surrounded by things that make me feel good and comfortable. And that's how we function. So an interesting example today with my son. Again, tough balance for me to strike as a parent. Do I try and address that and try and tweak it? Do I let him just enjoy the magic of Christmas, which is probably the right decision, but something to consider for sure.